or they try to.
What in God's name is going on in here? What was that ruckus?
What ruckus?
I was just in my office and I heard a ruckus.
Could you describe the ruckus, sir?
You're now listening to Music Mpulse with Smilez.
Y'all, what up? It's your boy Smilez. We back for another episode of the Music Mpulse. Today we have the incredible honor of hosting a multifaceted powerhouse in the world of journalism and storytelling. Our guest, Marlissa, is an esteemed author of the Dallas Weekly, a dynamic podcast host of the Green Route podcast, a gifted political writer. Her talents don't stop there. Marlissa is also a compelling storyteller and a skilled multimedia journalism, weaving narratives that captivate and inform audiences. Join us as we delve into her journey, some insights, impactful stories that she brought to life, and everything else in between. So let's give a warm welcome to Marlissa.
Hey, what's up? I thank you for having me. Thank you, Joshua. This means everything. And it's crazy. That bio is yeah, it's true. Don't get me wrong. I do my thing. But also, no, it's just an honor to be able to have a platform and to have a voice that I can use. So thank you for allowing me to be here to speak to it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. I just want to start off by saying the reason how I originally found you was I saw that Jessica had posted your Fan Expo article. That was the original first article that I had seen, because one of my little side gigs that I've been doing is doing security, and I actually worked Fan Expo that entire week. So I was like, oh, someone.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, Dallas Weekly had someone at Fan Expo. I was like, I gotta read this just to check it out, especially because talking about Blerds and all that, because I consider myself a Blerd myself. So I was like, the fact that I was there the whole week working, but I was just like, yeah, I'm interested in reading this and checking it out. I was like, okay, this is a dope article. So that was the first one, and then that's when I started following you on LinkedIn, and then I saw you had written the Kenyon Dixon article. And me being a music head and being a fan of Kenyon Dixon, I was like, oh, let me check this out and read this. So I was like, okay, let me reach out to her. And then again, like I told you when I reached out to you, I was like, okay, work for Dallas Weekly. I interviewed Jessica before. I was like, and then one of my frat fraternal brothers in my chapter, you know him, and then you told me how all that, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this is cool.
Victor, right?
Yeah. So I was like, this is dope. Oh, I definitely got it, because again, Victor, he's a character. If anybody that knows him, he's definitely a character. Oh,
I know.
Actually, before, because I only pledged a couple years ago, spring 22. I remember before I joined the chapter and pledged and all that, I remember just going to an event. It was actually we do a yearly Christmas toy drive and everything, and he's usually the one leading it and everything. But that was the first time I went to it. Just meeting him, also for just seeing how he was, I was just like, yo, this guy has to be my favorite ones that I've met so far. I was because he was just joking and laughing the whole time, because it was just yo, this guy Victor, I remember leaving, if I don't remember anybody's name, I'm gonna remember that guy Victor's name. So I was like,
that's what's up. Now Victor, that's my guy. Actually, I worked with him at AT&T. That's how I met him. And so we used to be on the same team. So we became real good friends. And then when he got married, his wife became my good friend. So yeah, he's dope. And then that, crazy enough, that FanCon article. So we had just got the invite to do coverage. I had never been to anything like that. And so none of the other writers could go. But I was like, all right, I'm going to just pull up and see what's up, because I don't really know anything about like nerd culture or Blerd culture or anything like that. And so I had so much fun, and people were like so welcoming. So I really wanted to understand like the history of like Blerd culture, in particular. So I wrote that article, and it actually got like a lot of really good traction. Actually, the founder of Blerd.com reached out to me because the article had been posted in some places. And so he had reached out to me about us maybe doing something with him. And then Kenyon, that's my boy. We grew up together. Like we've known each other since we were in diapers, probably.
Oh,
and
wow,
so,
that's dope.
yeah, I've literally been able to watch him. I remember when the day he told me that he was going to pursue music. And a lot of people don't know this, but he comes from a very, very musically inclined family. The Dixon family is very talented. And his dad's name was Larry Dixon. He was kind of the base of his children's like musical ability. And so his sister Q is an incredible singer. His brother Deshaun is an incredible musician. So I actually remember when we were teenagers, the day that he told me that he was going to pursue his music, and he did. And it's amazing to have watched his career just flourish the way that it has. So when I found out he was doing Togetherland, I had hit him up, him and his manager, and I was like, yo, this is your first major festival that you're playing. Like, we go way back. Like, I want to do the feature. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I got to do kind of his first, major festival feature, which was really cool. And it was just like talking to an old friend. And so that article did really well. I actually pitched that article too to NBC Comcast as well, because one of the things we talked about was how he takes care of his mental health as an artist and as a musician. And so it was a little deeper than like the music, right? It was like how mental health does play a role in artistry and how the two kind of go together. So yeah. That article actually ran for NBC Comcast, their digital equity voices lab. So that was pretty cool too.
Oh yeah, that's dope. Well, to start off with that one, I know one of the things I liked about that article was one, learning that he was also a dancer, and I was like, oh, that's cool to learn that he was a dancer, and then also just mainly because mental health and talking about that's really been a thing like the last maybe like 4 or 5 years or whatever. But just hearing about his own personal struggles with mental health, and then learning about the different strategies that he does to reduce his anxiety with like the 3 things, like touching 3 things and hearing 3 things.
That's right.
Point. I was like, oh, that's like a pretty cool thing that I like, because I've been a fan for the last few years, but I really kind of pay attention more actually with him working on the new Justin Timberlake album, and just following him on Instagram, because that's how I knew the album was coming out, because I didn't know Justin Timberlake was working on the album until because I followed Kenyon on Instagram, and I was like, oh. Okay. JT got a new album working up, which I think is a travesty that no one is not talking about it more.
He did a lot of writing on that album, and that's not the first time he's written with Justin Timberlake too. So you also, while he grew up as a dancer, he was a professional dancer even as a child. But when he got into music, first he was a background singer, and then he started writing songs. So like Tyrese was very early, like he penned a lot of songs for Tyrese, Tank, Genuines, and TGT, right? And then he also worked.
That TGT album was classic.
Anybody you can name, honestly. Anybody you can name, he's probably worked with a good majority of them. And so, like a lot of, I think the base of his career was actually formed with him penning hits for other artists. And then I remember watching the transition from kind of being in the background as a songwriter to, hey, I actually want to perform my own music now. And so we kind of watched that transition after a while. So yeah, he's just an all around talented artist, and not just in music, right? Like he does fashion. He's obviously a dancer. He's probably over there painting some shit right now. We don't even know about it, but all around artist. So yeah, I will always send my love and my support to Kenyon in any way possible, because number one, like he's the hometown homie, LA born and bred. And we grew up together, but also he's just a really, really good person who just happens to be an incredibly talented musician. And so I can appreciate that.
Oh yeah, that's definitely dope. Again, it was like he's definitely one of my new favorites the last couple of years. Especially like
so we'll have to send him this episode so he can see it.
Oh yeah, definitely for sure. But also to even just go back a little bit to your Fan Expo article, I wanted to highlight one of the lines that I really thought was dope in your article was when you said Black fandom is a testament to the power of finding community and representation in unexpected places. And I was like, that hits me again. Like I said, for a Blerd myself, is just and just even really the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, especially like doing my podcasting, is just finding out like more Blerds. Like one of my three of my favorite people that did podcasting. Well, they don't really do it no more because all three of them kind of like life and everything, but they did a podcast that I've been following them, and then I've met like other podcasts that also do like Blerd related podcasts, and it just even from knowing them and being those are people like I really gotten to know, even if it's not in person, but even just through like Twitter and Instagram, just like you watched that? Oh, I've never seen that. Let me get hip to that. So I was like, for me, that has definitely been finding like a community that I feel a part of, even though I don't watch like as much anime as I did like last like couple years or so. Being unemployed, I've definitely caught up on a lot of anime these last couple months. So
I got time, huh?
Yeah, I was like, it's been animes that I'm like, I've caught up on like, season 2 and 3 have come up the last couple of years. I've caught up on those. I've caught up on some new ones and things like that. But overall, I just was like, it's like that just hit me and stood out to me because like that's definitely what Black fandom and just like different cultures, like different anime and superheroes and all that stuff. Like tonight at 6:00, me and my fiance are going to go see Deadpool.
Okay, I love Deadpool, by the way. I think it's hilarious. So yeah,
I was like, and I'm going to go see it again Sunday with 2 of my friends. So I was like,
I love it. That's what's up.
Yeah, because I was telling my fiance the other day, I was like, hey, I just want to warn you already, like this week, especially from like Thursday through like Sunday, I'm going to be like on super geek nerd mode. Like, so I was like, I just wanted to let you know ahead of time because, I like to talk about that stuff. And like, even though I know she doesn't really care about a lot of that stuff, but I'm just like, it's really like when I get excited, I just have to like tell someone.
That's cool. Right. I'm sure she's going to enjoy it though. I'm sure she'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I was like, I had her watching both Deadpools last week. I rewatched the Logan movie just to get prepared, and I'm like, hey, if you got any questions, just ask me. I'm ready. Like, if you need me to explain anything,
help you study up real quick. Huh?
Yeah, I was like, any questions you got, because especially on the little, because I've been watching like the YouTube videos and the interviews that they've been doing, like anything Ryan Reynolds and that Hugh Jackman have dropped. I'm like been watching them on YouTube and everything. I'm like, oh, they said this. Oh, babe, they said this. Like,
she's probably like, okay, all right.
Yeah, that's usually. She's like, I'm like, I warned you. Like, I'm super excited for this movie. I can't wait.
Man.
So I told her, I was like, I was like, just from seeing this movie tonight, I was like, I'm probably gonna be like, what?
Well, you said y'all going tonight and then you going again later this weekend, right?
Yep.
Oh my God, I love it. Mm-hmm. That's what's up. Y'all have fun. That's gonna be dope.
Yeah, so I'm definitely excited that. But also to kind of get into a little bit more about you, is like I also love how you said speaking how the activism in Blerd culture. I thought that was a nice addition for you to add because again, just looking at your background and everything, I thought that was pretty cool for you to also add that aspect into the article because again, you have a background in activism and talk about politics and things like that. So but that was something you just wanted to make sure you put into the article about that, or because of like your background, or is it just like because of from you learning about Blerd culture and all that?
Yeah, so it was something that that I learned. So actually, while I was at Fan Expo, I did some interviews just with people who were attending. I tried to find Black people who were attending Fan Expo. And there was this one guy in particular, he was actually from California, and he was with his 2 sons. And he was the one who started talking to me about a lot of the social issues that are talked about, like like an underlying theme in some of the shows that he watches.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wait a minute, like, what do you mean? And so you can see from the article, I had actually listed a few that he had told me about and some of the characters.
Yeah.
And then outside of like, you know, focusing on like our problems here in America, he was telling me that there are other like subgenres of anime in particular over in Asia that talk about certain social issues over there. And so I thought that was really interesting that even this faction of artistry tends to speak to the times. And like Nina Simone said it right, that an artist's job is to reflect the times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was cool that you have writers and animators that are using their platforms and kind of their channel of artistry to talk about what's going on. So yeah, I think it just goes to show that there's activism in all art.
Mm-hmm.
And in every genre of art, right? Like you can be a painter and display something that reflects what's going on in our community or what's going on in our society, and anime is no different. They just find ways to kind of weave it in to the overall entertainment of it. So yeah, I thought that was really cool too. And it was a learning lesson for me because like I said, I had never been to Fan Expo again, but people were very open to talking to me. And so I ended up just learning a lot about the culture, about anime in particular, and really just like the community, the activism of it, how there are even subgenres of that, like the cosplay people, you know what I mean? And so I thought it was so interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think that Fan Expo article did so well because I was literally just pushing out the things that I had just learned like that day from being at Fan Expo. And so people probably learned a lot because it was literally things that I had just learned. So it was probably a very informative article for people like me who just didn't know. We don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely love those articles. But kind of get into a little bit more about you. So you said you're originally from California, Los Angeles. So talk to us, you know, about growing up in California and, you know, getting into journalism and then how you ended up here in Texas. Yeah. 'Cause I saw you did your undergrad in California. Then I saw you went to grad school here at SMU. So like, talk to us about a little bit more about your history and how you got into all this.
Yeah. So born and raised in LA, South Central LA. So I'm an 88 baby, meaning, you know,
88, same year,
right?
Oh,
yeah. So the crack epidemic was definitely on the tail end. So LA was a hotbed, you know, when I came into the world. And I think because of the environment that I was in, but also the family that I was in, my mother in particular, who was very socially aware of things that were going on in politics and society, things like that. Don't get me wrong, I grew up in the church, so I'm a Kojic kid. If you know anything about the Kojic church, you know it is very cultish. But my mother exposed me to a lot by way of buying me books about things that she thought I may be interested in or questions that I may have asked her. She would go buy me a book and allow me to learn about it that way. And so it's funny, I think about kind of this weird paradox of you're this kid in this incredibly violent environment. It's very loud and there's still drive-bys going on. And, you know, we get a crack house on this side of the block and another one on this side of the block when I grew up. But yet my grandmother's house was very insulated because of, you know, her keeping the family in church, but then also my family focused very heavily on education, extracurriculars. If you weren't playing sports, you needed to be playing music or doing something with yourself. And so they really kept us busy. So yeah, I grew up just being really interested in art, in music in particular. And then also I love to read. That was like one of my favorite things to do. And that turned into me doing very, very well on all of my like college entry exams, particularly on like the English section of all those things. I got like perfect scores on all of like the English sections, written portions and everything. And so when I got ready to go to college, I was like, hey, I think I want to study English. Like, I think I want to be a writer. And I remember telling my mom that. And my mom, again, you know, she loved this, but she was also very, very much a realist. And she was like, nope, writers don't make any money. you need to go study something that's going to make you some money. And so I happen to be really good with physics too. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll just do engineering. That's how I ended up getting a civil engineering degree with a minor in English and a minor in sociology. So I was literally on one side of campus studying hardcore science. And then for all of like my minor stuff, the stuff to get my 2 minors, I was on the other side, like in the liberal arts department, studying English literature, taking poetry classes, taking sociology classes, which I found that I really, really loved. And so, yeah, came out, did engineering for 3 years, and I was good at it. I was good. I did home design for some of the most well-known builders in Los Angeles and California. But I knew that wasn't for me. And so everybody at the company, at the time I worked for Southern California Gas Company, and all the executives had really taken a liking to me. And it was like, hey, you're a good engineer, but we actually think you would be better like on the leadership side of things. Like you should think about going to grad school and getting an MBA. Okay. So I was like, all right. So I applied to business school, took the GMAT, applied to business school. And I wanted to get out of California because I had been there my whole life. So, we're talking, 25, 26 years at this point. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I never lived anywhere else. I really haven't been too many places. I had traveled a little bit, so I wanted to go somewhere else. So I just started applying to different schools. I looked at the list of the top 50 business schools in the country or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I applied. And then SMU actually sent me a letter and they were like, hey, we're offering you a scholarship. I was like, well, looks like I'm going to SMU. Cool. Because who wants to pay for school when you don't have to? Right. So ended up moving down to Dallas, went to SMU, did my 2 years there. The first semester I got hired by AT&T. And they were like, hey, when you graduate, we want you to come work for us. And I was like, damn, I got a job already. All right, cool. So by the time I walked out my second year, I was ready to go into AT&T's leadership development program. But crazy enough, I was still like writing in the meantime. Like I was doing like, oh, I'll do an op-ed here, or I'll do a contribution piece over here or something. I was still writing the whole time. Okay, that's dope. And so, go to AT&T, I'm moving up the ladder like crazy. And finally one day I was just like, you know what? I keep leaving something undone. Like every day, I just feel like I'm not doing something. So I actually started a blog. Don't know why. That's just what came to me. I was like, I'm gonna just start a blog.
Hey, I've done a few blogs back in my day. Blog.
Yeah. So it's called the $15 blog. I named it after a great Tupac song that I love, right? Uh-huh. So $15 blog, I post the first article one night. The next morning I wake up and the thing has gone viral. And I was like, what? This is crazy. Okay. So $15 started doing very, very well. People started looking forward to my commentary on either political issues or things that were happening in society. Mm-hmm. And so from there, that actually ended up opening more opportunities within AT&T because people within the company got word of my blog and was like, oh, like, we didn't know you could write like this. And so that, like, by the time I left there, I was like, I didn't mind it because for me, they were two separate things, right? Yeah. Like, this was my day job, and then this is something I did for fun once I got home. Cool. But when it started opening up doors for me, I was just like, oh, wait, maybe this is actually a thing. From that blog, also, I ended up winning a fellowship with the German Marshall Fund. So my mentor, Kimberly, from back in LA, she was like, hey, I want you to apply for the Marshall Memorial Fellowship. Mm-hmm. What this fellowship is, I thought was too good. Like, I wasn't good enough in my head. Because these are people from all over the world, from all over Europe, from all over the United States who've had these amazing careers, you know, and they're literally going over to Europe for a month to study like foreign affairs and policy and our relationship with the EU. Oh. And so I was just like, too good for me. I applied, did the interview. They fucking selected me for the fellowship. And I was like, what is happening right now?
Wow, that's awesome.
I go to Europe. I go study, you know, international policy, foreign affairs. I have an amazing time, and I come back and I realize, like, that's what I need to be doing. Like, this is what I actually really need to be doing. The very next year, they invited me to go back to Europe. They invited me to go to Ukraine to cover the presidential election. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is obviously something I need to start paying more attention to. Like, AT&T was treating me well. They were paying me well, but I knew I was being like pulled into something else.
Yeah.
And so I kind of played around with it for a while until 2020. My mom died. My mom died on the 4th day of 2020, right?
Oh, wow.
And we did her funeral, everything. And then the next day I was cleaning out some of her stuff in her room and I found this folder.
Mm-hmm.
And the folder was pretty much like, it showed the progression of her career. She worked for the County of Los Angeles my whole life. And I saw all of these letters where she was like writing like, hey, I applied for this position. I passed the test. I have the degree and I'm still not getting the promotions. What's up? And I mean, it was letter after letter after letter where she had applied for this job, didn't get it, applied for this job, didn't get it, tried to protest, appeal, didn't get it. And I realized like, I didn't want to fight with corporate America for what anybody could see that I had worked for and I had earned. And I remember sitting there in my mom's room and I was just crying and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a chance on the thing that I really, really want to do. I was like, I'm about to take my writing seriously. I'm going to figure out how to be a writer. Like I'm going to figure out how to be the thing that keeps pulling me to it anyway. So 2 years later, I left AT&T. I saved up a bunch of money, got a bunch of training under my belt, started doing freelance writing for different publications just to kind of start getting into the industry.
Okay.
And March of 2022, I left AT&T and left a bunch of money on the table. People thought I was crazy when I walked out. Like the way they were paying me, my friends was like, you sure? I was like, no, but also I just feel like this is what I have to do. And I left it at that.
Yeah, because I saw what your title was. I was like, oh, she was that? Because
so you can imagine.
Yeah, because at my last job, that was my boss. He had kind of like got me like thinking about trying to do that, like that type of role, because I was starting to do like HR type stuff, and he was like, hey, something you could possibly be doing. He was like, for me, he's like, or another company is chief of staff, and I was like, because I was like, chief of staff, what's that? He was like, I'm seeing your article about what it is and what it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Wait, my last role, I was a chief of staff, and I had another chief of staff job before that. But yeah, my last one, I got moved up again to support a higher leader as a chief of staff. And when I left, it was funny, when I had a conversation with my boss, she was like, I respect this. She was like, because I can actually see what you're talking about. She was like, all of us can see that, like, this is where you need to be. And I was like, that means a lot. Like the fact that even y'all know that, like, there's something else that's calling me to it. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I left, and it's been almost 2.5 years since I left the company. And when I tell you that, there were days where I was just like, man, what am I doing? Like I was doubting myself. I just wasn't sure. But I just kept getting up every day and showing up, writing articles. And then I got into kind of creating video content, which started doing very well. Mm-hmm. And that kind of showed me that, all right, there is a place for me. And so I don't even want to jinx it, but I have like a bunch of opportunities coming up in the next few months to move into broadcast journalism. So right now I'm in print and digital, obviously, but to move into broadcast journalism. And so I'm really, really excited about that, because that in essence is what I want to do. Like I do want to be able to educate and inform and kind of storytell via broadcast and via TV. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, that's dope, because just looking at the amount of articles you have out there, and then I went on like your YouTube page and all that, and checking out your page, I was just like, oh, she's been doing her thing. But yeah, when I saw what you did with AT&T, I was like, oh, she was that.
Oh, yeah. I was a local celebrity over at AT&T, man. I'm telling you, like it. But I met some incredible leaders there. I had some really good friends, and I think our conversation is probably going to go into the difference of like corporate and where I am now. Mm-hmm. But I will say that in the last 2.5 years, it's been a very interesting shift, like kind of out of corporate life and to where I am now.
Yeah. So yeah, speak about what that shift was like, because that's kind of like a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 type thing, into like being a content creator is kind of like one. I don't know if like how it is with Dallas Weekly or however it is with you, but it's kind of like wake up whenever you want to or whatever, you kind of have like a free flowing day, or like how has that been, or like, you know, especially like, you know, like your first, you know, week or a few days, or you're just like, oh, I don't have to get up and like, you know, get dressed for this job. I can kind of just chill in my pajamas today and still do my content creation or write my articles or whatever. What has that transition been like the last couple of years?
Yeah, so let me say that I was not the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday corporate girl either. Being a chief of staff means that if your boss is working, you're working. If your boss is traveling, you're traveling. And so a chief of staff job can mean you're up for 24 hours straight if the right emergency pops off, right? If the right crisis pops off. So even in corporate, I was never kind of within those standard hours. And I do think that actually created a lot of opportunity, because leaders saw that, like, oh, she's willing to, you know, take on extra and all of this. And I was, because I don't like to put on anything. I don't like to put my name on anything that's half-assed. And so if the job meant that, you know, I got to work on a Saturday or a Sunday, I was willing to do that. So when I transitioned out, I will say that the first, I'm going to say month or two, I rested. I didn't realize how burnt out I was from corporate. And so I rested. I was still writing, you know what I mean? I was still doing my thing, but I relaxed. I traveled, I spent some money. I chilled and I like slept. I allowed myself to just kind of reset, which I think I really needed, because you don't realize how burnt out you are until you have a moment to just not do anything. So I rested. So then after that, you know, I had a copywriting job. That was cool. Then a few other things happened, and then I ended up getting the Dallas Weekly. But I will say that one thing I found probably about 6 months in is that even though I didn't have to clock into a job or go to an office anymore, structure was going to be very important for me.
That's the same way I am, because it's like,
I couldn't just,
even though I'm unemployed, it's like I like structure. Like I need to wake up, go do this, then from this time do this and whatnot.
A routine, I realized like a routine is actually very important for me. And so I started working on what my routine would be like. What is something that I can keep up with every single day, and like not necessarily push myself like working into the ground, but also not coddle myself too much, because I did want to push myself so that I can really break into, you know, this industry that I was trying to get into. So yeah, I mean, it went from, hey, I'm expected to be at the office or I'm expected to be online at this time, to I now have to have the expectation of myself to get up out the bed, go to the gym or get my run in or whatever, come home, headlines, coffee, you know, start writing or check emails. And so I started developing that structure. And I think people think because I don't work for a huge corporation anymore that I just chill all day, but I actually have probably a longer day than most people who work in corporate America, and certainly I would say a more structured day than most people who work in corporate.
Yeah, that's definitely one, like kind of, you know, not to your extent, but definitely on a very small scale. Like even again, just being unemployed this recently, like my first few weeks, month or whatever, I really didn't do nothing. One, just from, you know, the shock and everything, of just like, wow, I don't have a job.
Yeah, right. What am I supposed to do with myself now? Like, what?
Yeah, especially because like, yeah, it came out of nowhere. But and two was just also just like, again, just being burnt out from the job. Was like, 'cause, like my fiance was just like, she knew I was like kind of just super stressed from the job, so it was like kind of, she was just like, no, you needed this. Like it didn't happen, you know, the way we wanted to, or like in the timing wasn't the best.
I agree with her.
But she was just
100%.
But also because she had just, I think because she works in a school, so I think it was like maybe a couple weeks or like a week or two, like before she got out of school for the summer. So it was just like those first few weeks after she got out of school, it was just like we were just waking up, just whatever, just chilling, whatever. And but then, like, you know, after like a few weeks, I was just like, okay, I need to like, all right, I need to start looking for a job now. But like, it was just weird, just being able to wake up and not think about nothing.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm 100% with her. I do think that sometimes things happen in the time that it's supposed to. Like, I believe in divine timing. I really do. If, you are stressed out, I think whatever you believe in, right? I call it my cosmic truth. They will make it so that you get the thing that you need, and you obviously needed rest. So yeah, I'm with your fiance. I definitely feel like it was meant to be that way, and the job will come. It will come.
Mm-hmm. But also, again, just looking at everything from your content creation and everything, you started the Green Route podcast. From what I saw, you started that in 2022, also, or was that earlier? Or
yes.
Okay.
2022.
Yeah. So talk about this.
Yeah, so that was a brainchild of me and my good friend and podcast co-host, DJ GS. It was funny. We would always be at events together or whatever, and him and I would start talking about politics. Every time we'd be around a bunch of friends, and me and GS would always end up somewhere talking about politics. And before we knew it, everybody that was at the party is sitting around us, listening to us go back and forth about politics. And so we had friends who were just y'all need to make this a show. This needs to be a podcast, because they would talk about how they would learn so much from the way we talked about politics. And so we sat down at my house one day, I think it was the summer of 2022, and we just talked about what it would look like, the structure, and how we would, go through topics. And then we also started thinking about a name. And I actually had a copy of an old green book on my table that was sitting between the two of us when we were talking in my front room. He was like, "What about the green book?" And I was like, "Well, why don't we call it the Green Route?" So it's a destination. It's a safe place to understanding. And so that's where the name came from. We put it together, and we initially were recording at my house, and we went to his house, and we went to a studio, and we're actually about to go back to his house just because we like the homey environment. We record in the trap. And so at the time he was living in this apartment that in essence was the trap, honestly. The building was crazy. But he's, moved on. He has another apartment, but he actually kept that original apartment. He still pays rent there because now he just uses it as a creative space so that he has something separate from his home apartment.
Okay.
And so he was like, "Why don't we just move the show back there?" And I was like, I actually really like that because it gave a very homey feel, like we were just sitting at the dinner table talking politics. So yeah, we talk about domestic and international happenings, current events. We can go, and then we talk about some cultural things too as well. So we can go. You start here in America, maybe in Texas, go to DC, talk about something crazy that's happening in Mississippi. Then we might flow over to Haiti and update people on the situation there. And then we might talk about Diddy or something. So, it's a good time. It's an hour just to learn some shit, and we let you go for the week. So, yeah.
Yeah, because one I noticed that I was definitely have to check out was the ones about Israel, because I know all that stuff that's been going on. I really don't know all that happened. So I was like, and I saw that it was an hour. So I was like, I'm gonna have to check some of these out so I can educate myself on everything. And because all I really know is just from different artists, like Belly and Kaylani and other artists just talking about it in their music and in interviews and stuff like that. So it's then all the protests they keep talking about in the news. So I was like, this might be a great way for me to learn everything, because for me, not into politics really at all, but it's really just having someone to break it down. So I was like, I'm gonna have to check out her stuff. If I have someone who can break it down easily, in layman's terms for me to. And
that's our whole point, right? We want people to get comfortable with it, because politics, I think, on purpose, is made to be intimidating, the way that it's structured and its language and everything like that. And so when Gabe and I get together, we definitely just we talk normal. And on the Israel front, crazy enough, Gabe and I have been talking about Israel since before October 7th. We've been talking about the occupation of Palestinian territory since before October 7th. And so, for us, it was very important for people to understand the history before what happened on October 7th, because then it gives you a fuller picture of why Hamas was even formed in the first place and why that attack took place. But if you start on October 7th, you're erasing almost 100 years of abuse and issues that the Palestinian people have been subjected to. And so, of course, it's really easy to side with someone who just looks like they were attacked for no reason. Why would they do this to us? And so, yeah, me and Gabe try to make sure that people understood the context, because October 7th happened. I was actually traveling. If I'm not mistaken, I was in Montgomery. And when I saw the message, I was like, whoa. And thank God I was actually on a trip with a bunch of journalists. I was in Montgomery with a bunch of journalists. And I remember October 8th waking up, going downstairs, and I was talking to some of the journalists about what had happened. And I realized very quickly that most of them were just regurgitating what politicians and mass media were saying, without any context of the history. And that's when I realized that GS and I really needed to lean into this and start educating people on the actual history of Palestine and Israel, so that they had a better understanding of what led the situation and the environment that created an October 7th. So, yeah, I mean, we try to be educational and informative, but in a way where our people can feel like they can be part of the conversation, they can get an understanding, and they can walk out and actually be part of another conversation, because now they're armed with the right information to be able to have a discussion, like a true discussion.
Yeah, and then also along with that, I love the added aspect of like having cocktails while you doing it, because just from like, you know, reading y'all's bio on the podcast, and just I'm like, oh, that's a real like to me, just reading it just brings like a relaxed like nature and feel to like what you're about to get into, because it's like, okay, we're gonna talk about politics, but we're gonna sit there and enjoy some cocktails while
we're gonna mix this drink while we at it.
Yeah, so what was that aspect? Was that just something like, hey, like we both like enjoy cocktails, or like how that come to be? Was it originally part of the podcast in the beginning, or is it something that evolved into, or how was that added aspect of just, you know, that relaxed nature to it?
So it was always relaxed. It was always a relaxed podcast. Crazy enough, so every time we would record, we would just pour a cocktail. Both of us like tequila, and so he'd have his mixture, I have my mixture, a little tahini, some lime, whatever you want, right? So we always, every episode, we would make a cocktail. And sometimes we even had a hookah set up, and we would smoke while we, you know, talked about politics or whatever, right? So one day, one of my best friends, his name is, he goes by Great Black Century. He's an incredible artist, by the way, here in Dallas, and one of the smartest people I have ever met in my life. Like, the man is brilliant. So one day, he was watching the show, and he was like, man, this is good. Like, y'all really on to something. And he was like, man, it's like, you know, politics, liquor, and cussing. And I was like, I actually really like that tagline. I think that's amazing. So I told Gabe, and I was like, yeah, like, you know, Great Black Century, like, he just said that our show should be called Politics, Liquor, and Cussing. And so we just started using the line over and over again to try to give people an idea of what they were going to see on the show. And then, honestly, that's how we start catching, like, our first few subscribers. He was like, wait, you said politics, liquor, and cussing? Like, I'm here.
That's what I said. I was like, oh, I'm in it for that.
So we changed it to cocktails because both Gabe and I tend to, like, go through moments where we detox. And so it may not always be liquor, but it may be a mocktail this week or whatever. And so we was like, let's just do cocktails or mocktails or whatever instead of liquor, because, you know, we don't want to have that false advertising, first of all. But then also, you know, it made it more inclusive, I think, because not everybody drinks, right? And so we was like, let's just, you know, we can still call it a cocktail. It doesn't necessarily have to be liquor because it's a cocktail. A cocktail is literally just different shit in a cup, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we changed it to politics, cocktails, and cussing. And I don't know, it worked. It worked. I think it made people, like you said, more comfortable because it was laid back. You know, we sipping on something. We may have a hookah set up one day. We may not. And there's always going to be some cuss words flying. So yeah, it was a good time.
That's dope. That's dope. So I definitely want to get into like some political couple topics and things like that, especially if you can, you know, help break it down to me, and you know, and for the people who are listening, for you know, again, like some basic, you know, layman terms, you know, down to earth type going. So, you know, recently, you know, the news is Biden dropping out of the presidential race, and Kamala Harris potentially being the Democratic Party's choice. So can you just go on to a little bit like on your thoughts about that when you got that news over the weekend?
Yeah. So after first of all, let me be clear. Months ago, there were calls for Biden to drop out and not seek re-election. So this wasn't. A lot of people were like, "Oh, y'all were panicking after the debate." No, there have been calls for months for Biden to drop out. So there were a lot of strategists who was like, Biden was only ever supposed to be a one-term president. He was meant to get us out of the Trump situation because the country was in a situation at the end of Trump's presidency, right? Even the way he left the White House was just incredibly like shameful, right? Remember him walking to the chopper and like head down, just ashamed. And so Biden got in. He was able to get the COVID vaccines going. You know, get certain things get the virus under control. He was able to get people back into schools, things like that. And so, in my opinion, Biden had done a fairly decent job. I'm not going to say he did a great job. I'm going to say he did a fairly decent job at putting his hands on a lot of the issues that we were facing as a nation right then. Mm-hmm. And Biden was the man for the job. He was the only, I can't think of anyone else who could have got the nomination and beat Trump at the time, right? And he didn't even really like landslide Trump. He slid in there, right?
Yeah, he just
cool. Right. So after the debate, I had put just like, you know, you could type stories on your Instagram or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I said that if Biden cares about his party keeping the executive office, he will turn the ticket over to someone who can win. And there were a couple of reasons I said that. Number one, because he was starting to be outpolled by Trump, especially in a lot of the swing states. Mm-hmm. Number two, you have to remember that politics in America is very performative, very performative. Half the time, people don't really care about your policy or your platform. They can care less. They care about, are you likable? Do you look strong? Do you speak well? Your tone, your cadence, you know, your word selection, things like that. That our politics,
all things he wasn't doing.
This is why they have, this is why they have PR firms and brand strategists, and because it is a performative thing. So you cannot get up on a stage against someone like Donald Trump, who has more charisma than most, right? Hence why his base is so crazy. You cannot get up on a stage and not be able to attack him on his lies, not be able to keep up, be confused. You can't do that because you are looking at someone who's a master manipulator with charisma against someone who we know can govern. We know you can govern, Biden. We know that you've done it for 15 years. We know you can make policy, but you cannot get up there and let him outperform you because that's what politics in the U.S. is about. So then I put another story up and was just like, you know, because a lot of people were sending me messages like, it's too late, that's suicide, da, da, da. I was like, no, listen to what the people are saying. They don't like either candidate. People are looking for an alternative. They are looking for some type of alternative. Now, I'm saying it does have to be the right alternative, but imagine if you introduce somebody who could be considered the right alternative, how that would flow. So then I'm going back and forth with people. And then actually I stopped arguing with people because I was like, this is what I studied all day long. Yeah. All day long I studied this. And I'm not going to argue with people who ain't read a book in 20 years. I'm not going to do it, right? So I actually ended up getting a text message from a very good friend of mine who works on the Hill in DC. And they said, hey, it's already been decided. Biden's dropping out. So I knew it was coming probably about 5 days before the announcement was made.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna say 4 or 5 days before the announcement was made. Of course, I didn't say nothing because
because you can't.
Who am I to say it, right?
Yeah, you can't lose the connect. They can be like, hold on.
Right. It's my source. Like I can't. And what they said was, it's definitely going to be Kamala. Now they're trying to bet for her VP. So I was like, cool. What's the timeline on that? And my friend was like, they're trying to get it done by Friday. So this was last Friday, right? Okay. So she was like, they're trying to get it done by Friday, but the announcement is coming out at some point this weekend. I said, all right, cool. So the announcement comes out Sunday, right? All right, start running it up. And everybody was like, well, he's never going to endorse her. And I was like, that would be stupid because, first of all, he thought she was good enough to be VP, but not good enough to be president. That doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Number two, he would ruin his legacy if he did not endorse his
vice
own,
mentee,
right? the one that he calls kid all the time.
Yeah.
Like, if he did not endorse her, not to mention she's a woman of color. You crazy? You would ruin your legacy if you did not come out and endorse her. You would ruin it. So I actually like what I'm seeing now. I'm not gonna lie. Now, I knew that people were going to like. I knew the Democratic Party was going to get behind her, number one, because of the funds, right? So he had $250 million cash on hand. She is the only candidate who can touch that money because her name was on the paperwork when he filed for candidacy.
Okay.
So as long as it's being spent by one of the two people that were on all of the forms, the declaration of candidacy, the organization documents, all of that, right? That's what the Federal Election Commission's rules say. So she was the only one who could touch that money that would be inherited. So I was like, all right, it's going to be Kamala, cool, not a problem. I'm going to see how people respond to her. When I tell you what I am seeing right now is on some Obama level shit. Oh, wait. Remember how much energy there was around Obama? It was like he had just like injected this like hope into the nation. Remember you had people chanting, yes, we can. Like, Kamala is on track, in my opinion, to have that type of movement. And what I like about it in particular is that it's only 3 months. Mm-hmm. You ain't even got to keep this up for a year. It's 3 months to keep people fired up, talking about you. You get on that stage, you whoop Donald Trump's ass a couple times, and she will, because she has the verbal chops to do it.
Yeah, I was like, just from the like clips and stuff I've seen that she did like years ago when they was first
she gonna eat them up.
Running. I was like, oh, I can't wait to.
She gonna eat them up. Yeah, remember when she was eating Mike Pence alive, just eating Mike Pence up. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, there is nothing in me that doesn't believe that she will not perform well against Trump. And I'm actually really liking who I wish she would choose for her VP, because he's kind of become a bulldog for her against JD Vance. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see, right?
Is it the guy from California,
Kentucky governor? Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Kentucky governor. Okay, I think I heard his name the other day too.
Bashir.
Yes. I did hear. Yeah, because I was looking at something on YouTube and they were talking about potential VP candidates. So
yeah, I like him because he's a Democratic governor of a very red state, which may actually help her in that state, right? Kentucky usually goes red, but imagine if your governor is the vice president, you might actually be willing to vote for his ticket. So yeah, I mean, I like what I'm seeing now. I think she's being very strategic about some of the things that she's doing. So including like, Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, he gave a speech to the joint session of Congress yesterday. And not only did she say she would not preside over the address, but she was like, I ain't even going. She went to some Zeta Phi Beta shit and like went to a boule and gave the keynote there. And so I do think she's being strategic about moving away from some of Biden's policies that young people of color, Muslims, very progressive voters are going to hold her accountable for. So I like what's happening. Honestly, I don't even know who's on her strategic team. I know they're still hiring people to push for the next 100 days, but so far I think they're doing a bang-up job on social media. The fact that they were able to get Beyonce to allow them to use Freedom as her theme song for the campaign, fantastic. She has celebrity endorsements coming out. So it's looking good. And I also just saw, this is the last thing I'll say, there have been all the meetings. Black women started it with the meeting on Sunday night, and then Black men had their meeting, white women had a meeting, Latinos had a meeting.
Yeah, because I was in the one on Monday that Roland Martin had. I was in that one. I figured
you'd be on there, yeah. I hopped on for a minute because I just kind of wanted to see who y'all had speaking, but I didn't want to be intrusive, so I literally hopped on for a minute and then I got out. But I just saw today something that gave me a lot of hope. There is a meeting that's being set up, white men against MAGA. And when I saw I
was just showing my fiance the white women one yesterday. I was like, yo, they got a white women one. I was like, yo. Mm-hmm. So, okay,
and what I love is that no one is making it about race, right? We're just saying within our communities, we need to strategize. So I saw some people on TikTok that was like, why are we doing white women meetings? And this other lady stitched it, and she was like, because Black women asked us to, and we fucked up so bad the last time that we got to get it right this time. And so I appreciated, number one, the level of accountability, knowing that, like, yeah, we actually did fuck it up last time. but then also that we know it's not a race thing. It's not a race thing. It's just that our communities do tend to be siloed. Yes, we overlap, but we talk to each other more than we talk to anybody else. And so, yes, we do need white women to get together and talk about how y'all are going to fundraise and how y'all are going to message the same way Black women need to do the same thing. And so I was so hopeful when I saw white men putting a meeting together. I think there's this tonight because they started sharing this Zoom link like yesterday. Okay. But Latinos. I haven't seen like one for Asian Americans yet.
I know I saw like a Latino one. I saw the white women one. Yeah. I saw the Black women, and I was on the Black men one. So.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm liking what I'm seeing, but obviously you have to watch close. And one thing that I pledged to do. And by no means do I think Kamala Harris is spotless, right? Like, again, I grew up in California, so I'm probably more aware of her record than most people. But I do think that politics in the U.S. is almost always the lesser, right? I think this time we do have an opportunity to get someone who has a bit more empathy because she is a woman of color. She was the child of, immigrants. And so,
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Neezy here. I wanted to make sure that y'all go and get your Naturally Nay Instant Moisture Duo. That's right. This Instant Moisture Duo can be used on braids, locks, twists, beards, and all of your natural hair. The moisturizer is all natural ingredients. One of our key ingredients, aloe vera. Aloe vera is really great for your scalp. And our oil blend is a mixture of the best oils that you can use to promote hair growth and give your hair a good shine and overall just a natural glow. So you're getting 2 amazing products. Make sure you go to inaudibleruckus.com/naturallynay. And also you can follow us on Instagram at naturally_nay, NAEE.
Yeah, I think we have an opportunity, and the energy I'm seeing really does remind me of 2008 Obama, especially with the young people who this is their first time voting for a presidential candidate. They are more excited. They are as excited as you and I were in 2008 when Obama ran.
Yeah.
Given that was our first time being able to vote in a presidential election. Yeah,
I remember. Yeah, because I was a sophomore. I was a sophomore in college.
In college.
Yeah,
same.
And I remember because I used to work at the one of the dorms. I used to work at the desk overnight. So the night that it happened, because I was like, oh yeah, it's like my mom always told me, like, they'll have the announcement by the morning. So I was like, all right, I got to go into work at like 4:00 in the morning or whatever. So I would always go to sleep early the nights I'd have to work. So I remember just being asleep and just hearing people just like, I'm like, what the fuck is going on in the hallway? Like, I am trying to sleep. I gotta be at work at 4 in the morning.
Okay?
Yeah, and I come out. I'm like, what's it? They're like, he won. We got a. I'm like, yo, what? But it's midnight, so I'm excited, but I'm gonna go back to sleep. But because the one thing I do hate I'm missing on, because everybody in the town, they're like, yo, everybody went to the student union. We was playing My President is Black all loud. They was like, we was standing on the tables, and they was like, we was kicking. I was like, oh shit, like just seeing like pictures and videos. I was like, yo, I'm actually sorry I missed that, but again, I had to go. I was like, I'm trying to go to sleep, but because I was like, yeah, what? I was like, my mom said they never call it like the same like evening. They said they used to call it in the morning. They're like, no, it's over. He won. I was like,
it's a wrap. Yeah, it was such that I will never forget that night, because I was actually watching the electoral college votes come in with my grandmother in her room back in LA. And I remember my grandpa came up there, my mom came in the room, my sisters was in the room. So it was just like every family member that could possibly fit in my grandmother's room was in there watching her TV.
Everybody all sitting on the bed and everything standing around.
We was everywhere. We were everywhere. And when they called it, I remember looking at my grandmother and my grandfather, and they were both crying. So my grandmother is from Star, Mississippi. My granddad was from Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And they were both crying, and what I realized was that like they genuinely never thought they would see this and think about their background, right? They lived through Jim Crow in these places, right? And so watching them, I was just like, man, this is incredible. But one thing my grandmother said to me a couple days after that, she watched his inauguration. So it must have been after the inauguration, because she was like, all right, that's probably the last time I'll ever watch him on TV. And I was like, why? And she was like, because I don't want to see them kill him. And I said, she was like, I'm afraid they're going to kill him. And I was like, oh, I was like,
that was another thing. I was like, I'm going to run that, especially a lot of like your grandmother's generation were saying that. Mm-hmm.
She said,
I remember hearing that. I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, that is a reality.
Yeah. It's very real. And
I went to the inauguration too.
You and I grew up in a different time, right? So we in the back of our heads, we know it's a thing, but in our grandparents' heads, right, because of what they lived through, for them, it's a very, very real thing that they know happened all the time when they were growing up. And so, that's the type of energy that I am seeing around Kamala Harris, and I pray that they continue to keep their foot on the gas. I have dedicated my platform to education, election education, so it doesn't always have to be painting Kamala Harris in rainbows and kittens. If she has done something in her past that is questionable, I'm okay with bringing that out, because I do think it's important to give people all of the information so that they can make their own decision. But don't get me wrong, like, I'm on Trump and JD Vance's head as well. So
yeah, because I saw something just earlier today from JD Vance. He was saying he doesn't think people that don't have don't have kids should have much of a say. I was like, hold on, wait. And then he was like, and I know they're going to talk about me in the Washington Post and this, and yes, absolutely, that's what I think. I was like, yo, this is wild.
Yeah, he's a clown. Like, and if I'm being honest, he's bought and paid for by Silicon Valley billionaires. So JD Vance should really tread lightly when it comes to not having no kids and cat ladies and all of that, because, bro, you belong to Elon Musk and his friends. And I think you should remember that and stay in your place, little boy. Remember that.
Yeah, because I was like, wow. I was like, that's wild. Especially when, because again, me not being in the politics, they was already saying like, yo, he was an anti-Trumper like before, but as soon as you get the VP.
50 years ago. Yep.
You know, you're like, oh, yes, this is my guy.
Money will do that. Money will do that, won't it? It's so crazy how that happens. Mm. They get bought and paid for, and then all of a sudden, or they get some power, right? They get proximity to power. And I mean, you have to remember, JD Vance is a freshman senator. Freshman. That I knew something was wrong when they. I was like, nah, something ain't right. You really a freshman senator? Okay. And so once I found out his connection to Silicon Valley and Elon Musk, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Got it. Mm-hmm. Got it. So if Trump gets in, we probably will see a bunch of deregulation when it comes to tech, when it comes to crypto, when it comes to finance, because that's in essence what they're trying to buy by putting JD Vance in the VP seat.
Yeah.
And his wife has connections to the Supreme Court. I should point that out too.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. To kind of transition a little bit out of politics, back into your writing and everything. Do you have any personal favorite articles that you've written over the last couple of years? Anything with the Dallas Weekly that you wanted to highlight?
Actually, one of my favorites that I've written recently. So remember in the debate when Trump was like, "They're stealing black jobs." Mm-hmm. I wrote an article about the idea of black jobs and the age-old tactic of pitting minorities against one another. And what they usually do is they'll tell black people like, hey, Mexicans are coming and stealing your jobs. And what it does is it takes all of the attention away from the fact that there aren't enough resources allocated to this group. And it says, hey, if they weren't here, y'all would have plenty, instead of fixing it at the most basic level of making sure that there are resources enough to go around for black people. And so that's probably one of my favorite articles, because I felt like I wrote it. Well, it was an editorial article for Dallas Weekly, and so I was able to be very free in the way that I wrote it and talked about it.
I'm going to have to check that one out.
So I felt like I was kind of clowning. I was kind of clowning a little bit. And then, let me see. I would say one of my favorite investigative pieces that I worked on. I don't have the byline. My good friend and an incredible journalist by the name of Sam Judy, who also worked for Dallas Weekly. He is on the byline, but we worked on it together. So it's about the issue of fresh groceries and produce in South Dallas and the lack thereof. And so we had gotten a tip for a story from a developer actually in South Dallas who told me like, hey, Moran Foods is getting ready to close Save-A-Lot on MLK. And if you know MLK, you know that there's that grocery store and then there's Fiesta. Those are the only two grocery options that were in that neighborhood. Everything else is like a corner store, you know, nothing where you can get fresh produce. And so when we found that out, we really started investigating Moran Foods and also another company that they had gone and done business with called Yellow Banana, and realized that the whole thing was fucked up. It was just terrible. And so we were able to break that story a week before any of the major outlets actually got it. And so, yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites. That was earlier this year. And then I've done stuff over the years that I think has been fun. Probably one of my most impactful articles that I ever wrote. So remember 2020, there was the lady in the park in New York who called the police on his name was Christian. I can't remember his last name. Mm-hmm. She called the police and it was because he had told her to put a leash on her dog.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. Because that's how the whole Karen thing started, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that happened. And then days later, George Floyd got murdered. Oh, yeah. And so, mind you, this is 2020. We're just now really getting into COVID. Everything is shut down. My mother had just died. So I wasn't really writing much of anything. But I remember having so many feelings one night that I just sat at my computer and I just let it out. I just pushed. And what ended up coming out was more of a blog. It wasn't investigative, but it was a blog about why the two things were interconnected and why white supremacy in particular was at the base of it all, this caste system that we have here in America. And that the article actually did very, very well as well. But it was something that I pushed out of a place of emotion because I was just exhausted of watching what was going on in our country. And so, yeah, I think that's one of my favorites. Like, there was nothing funny about it. Usually I'm like kind of humorous when I write, but there was nothing funny in this article. It was very heartfelt, and it was very much me saying like, this is going to continue to happen as long as we have this caste system, which Isabel Wilkerson talks about a lot in her book Caste. It's going to continue to happen as long as we have that in this country.
Okay, you don't have to send that one to them. I want to check that one out too.
Yeah, I certainly will. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to check out the other ones. Are they on your link tree also? The black jobs and the
yes.
South Dallas one.
If you go to my link tree, it says there's a Dallas Weekly link, and that actually takes you to my author page on there that'll show you all the articles I've written for Dallas Weekly. Okay,
cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. Before we wrap up, I do definitely just want to have like a little fun. Can't have it too deep on the podcast.
Know,
gotta
right?
have a little bit of lighthearted. So again, consider yourself a craft cocktail connoisseur. I don't know, what are like a couple of your favorite go-to drinks?
Yeah. So on the craft side, I still do. I still like a good old fashioned, and I like it in different ways. So I used to drink dark liquor until my trainer was like, hey, you need to get off that dark liquor. Like, if you're going to drink tequila. So I started getting into tequila, and so now I tend to have bartenders make my old fashioned with either an anejo or a reposado tequila. So always a darker tequila, but yeah. I love old fashions. I also love Bouquet, which is you've been in New Orleans. It's one of like their staple drinks made with Sazerac. Okay. When I am trying to, like, when I'm working out heavy, lifting, running, all of that, and I'm like trying to lean, maybe I'm about to do camera work or something like that, and I want to drink, I always leave the sugar alone, and I just go for tequila, Topo Chico, lime, and Tajín. That is if I'm out and my friends order me a drink, they know that that's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I say like that I want something else, then yeah, that's it for me. My favorite 2 drinks to make in particular for other people, I love making old fashions for people, and I love making strawberry daiquiris for people. I genuinely think that those are the 2 drinks I've mastered, so much so that like my strawberry daiquiris, I've had people tell me like, yo, you need to bottle this shit up and sell it. So
it's like, I'm gonna pay you for this. It's so good right now.
Yeah. Yep. Use a dark rum in it. And yeah, so that's it. And then like right now I'm actually not drinking. I'm doing a month of no liquor just to, you know, detox my body and put some color back in my skin and stuff like that. So right now, I think I do love that there are so many good non-alcoholic options. So like even if you like beer, for example, there's a lot of non-alcoholic beer now that still has that happy taste that people like. You can rock with that. Obviously it's less calories, less carbs, all of that. It's great. And then I genuinely just like, you know, some Topo Chico, lime, tahini. I might throw a little kava in there if I want like to calm my body or whatever. Kava is just a root. You can go to any health store and get it. It comes in droppers and it gives you this calming feeling.
Okay.
So if you do want to, you know, relax after a long day, but you're not drinking liquor or you don't drink liquor, kava is really good too for a cocktail option.
Okay, cool. Again, what about like any for music really? Any songs or artists that you listen to when you're working or like chilling, drinking, like either or you can choose any option because I don't know if like you want to put any music on while you're working or anything, but like
so when I'm working, if I'm writing, I will not listen to music that has words because obviously I'm trying to get the own words out of my head while taking words in, and it's
too
a
distracting.
It's a battle. It's too distracting. So I love lo-fi hip hop. It is one of my favorite things to work to. It's just something about that boom clap, like that's repetitive and it gets you like in a groove. YouTube, Lo-Fi Girl, she has a really good station that streams 24/7. And it literally just says lo-fi hip hop study music. And you can put it on and just amazing. And so from there, I've learned that one of my favorite lo-fi artists is Team Astro. So if I need to like say like I'm flying out next week, right? And I'm probably going to work on the plane. I'll probably just download a couple of their albums and work while I'm on the plane, you know, and get some stuff done. When I'm not working and I can actually like listen to words, Kenyon, obviously he is just the GOAT of R&B. And there's just no question there. In the mornings, if I go run, that's my time to like really just pray and meditate. I like to wake up and just give thanks for all of the things that have unfolded in my life somehow. And so I do tend to listen to gospel during my runs and my morning workouts. Cause I'm a church kid, right? I grew up in a Cody church. So I'm used to like gospel music. So I'll turn on, I don't know, like old school gospel too. Like I'll turn on like John P. Key station and just let that go. So yeah, I'm pretty, the only music I don't really like, I'm gonna be honest, is like hard rock. Cause I just don't get it. I like country. I like Dan and Shay. I like Thomas Rhett. What's his name? Shabuzi? Is that his name?
Yeah, I really like his new album. I like that song with Big X the Plug. I was like, oh, he got Big X the Plug on there? I was like, oh. And I listened to it. I was like, this joint is hard.
I was listening to, so this morning, my first 2 miles I ran listening to the John P. Key station. Then I was like, all right, I'm going to switch over to country. And I turned on the Dan and Shay station. And one of Shabuzi's songs came on. And I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I don't really do like the Sexy Reds and the Glorillas. And it's not that like me being judgy, I just don't get it. I think I'm officially too old for it. Like I think I'm officially outside of the generation that can connect with that music just because I'm not doing the things that they're rapping about anymore in my life. Like I'm trying to fucking, you know, make sure this mortgage is refinanced and like I'm doing 36-year-old stuff now. So, yeah, when I hear their music, I'm like, it's cool, but I'm just not at that point in my life anymore, so it just doesn't resonate with me the same way.
Yeah, like I'm a fan of like both, but more like Glorilla. Definitely, I've listened to like Glorilla's projects. Sexy Red, I just like her authenticity. It was just like, I'm just gonna be who I am, like it or not. I'm never gonna listen to a project from her, but I was like, but the couple songs I have heard, I'm like, I see why like the folks like her, like the ones that I have heard. Like I'm like I see why. I was like, she's authentic. But I will say, like, my two friends, they do a podcast, Hear You podcast. Like, so when Biden dropped out, she tweeted Sexy Red for president, and as a joke, I sent that tweet to them, and they're fans of her too, because they love her, and but they kind of like us. They're like same age as us, but they're like some of her stuff. Like, yeah. So I sent it to them, and they're like, damn, they're like, Sexy, this is not the time. Nope, they're like this. They both are just like, this time we can't vouch for her.
Not the moment, huh? Not the moment. Yeah, I was on a trip with some friends. We were in Memphis, and they were like playing videos like her and Glorilla or whatever. And while I was watching it, I was like, I get it. Like, I do get what I actually understand the appeal, but I'm never going to go to Pandora and be like, "Ooh, play some Sexy Red." It's not gonna happen. Like, if I'm gonna go look for an album, it's gonna be, what J. Cole is doing, or Kendrick. Like, I'll always go back to Nipsey. He was one of my favorites. So yeah, I just have a different taste. And then I also, who Londrell is? He makes like kind of meditation hip hop. No, so he I got into him. I think somebody had played one of my yoga instructors had played his song in class one morning. And I went over to her phone. I was like, who is this? She was like, oh, his name is Londrell. And so he became part of my morning routine too. So like, there are certain things that I'll listen to before a certain hour just because I want to ease into the day. So I throw on Nipsey, right? Because he's talking about being focused and going after your goals. And then Londrell is really about gratitude and like giving thanks for, where you are, but also pushing through hard times because things will pay off, all of that. Janae Aiko, another one that I'll listen to in the morning because she does also make very like spiritual meditation music. And so I may put some of her stuff on. And then as I go through the day, then maybe I'll turn on some Cole or some, Kendrick, or I don't know. I like Summer Walker. I'm a big fan of Summer Walker. Yeah. I might turn her album on or something like that. So it really just depends too. Because I'm like, don't nobody need to start the day listening to Glorilla and Sexy Red. Like, calm down. It's 8:00 in the morning. Everybody bring it down a notch.
That's how I am too. Like, like depending on like how my mood. Like if I really just need to get hype, I'll look to like some hard hip hop. Like the a 21 Savage type of thing, like just to get me hot, Gucci or whatever. But like other than that, it's like I don't need to get like that first. Because
we know that music is spiritual, right? And that's why it impacts your mood like that. So like when I see people waking up to like music about killing somebody, I'm like, whoa, like bring it down. You already starting your day on a level that you don't need to be on. Smino, I'll listen to Smino early in the morning. I think he's also like someone who's very connected. So I do think people have to be careful about what they let in, because that does dictate how you walk through your life. It dictates how you treat people through the day. If you've been listening to something about like, I'll slap the shit out of you and I'm gonna shoot you in the face, then you're gonna come with that type of energy to every situation throughout the day. But if you listen to something about gratitude and being in touch with yourself and your ancestors or whatever, like you are going to approach situations with that type of energy. So yeah, I wish more people understood just how powerful music is, because you can literally change your mood just by the type of music that you listen to. Like, and that's why I hold musicians to a certain standard too. Like, and I'll talk about Kenyon again. He understands the spirituality of music. Mind you, he's a church kid too. That's how we grew up together. We grew up in the same church together. And he understands that music is spiritual, even R&B music, right? And so I think that's the reason he writes the way he writes, and like he approaches his craft the way he does, because he knows that there is a lot of power and like swaying people's attitudes and mindsets and feelings. And so I love that he sings about love and about like treating women well and all of that, because we got enough of the other shit out here. We got enough of the other shit out here. So yeah.
Okay. Second to last question.
Yeah.
If you could only choose 5 artists, any genre, dead or alive, to be the soundtrack to your life, who would you choose?
The soundtrack to my life. Dead or alive to be the soundtrack of my life. So I got to choose somebody gospel first. Let me think. I don't even know it's like, if I had to choose somebody from the gospel world, I would say it's probably like one of the Clark sisters or something like that, because they grew up in the same type of church, so they understand kind of my undergirding when it comes to spirituality and religion.
Okay.
So I'll probably choose one of them. We probably have the same type of like worship style and like prayer style and things like that, just because, again, the doctrine that we grew up under is the same. I would definitely choose something R&B, right? I'm probably gonna go with Janae Aiko. I like her range, where she can go from talking about real stuff in relationships and I can't stand you, I hate you, you're terrible, to, you know, this meditative state where she's healing all those things that she just talked about. Hip hop, I gotta put Nipsey and I gotta put Tupac on my list, both of them. So I know that's
4.
3 and 4 right there. And number 5, I'm gonna actually go with Lauryn Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, like I just always had this connection to her music, and even now, like, you know, she's gone through what she's gone through, but I feel like she's always been very honest about her struggles, and I think that comes out in her music. Like, you know, I think that's why she makes incredible music, is because she pours all of that into her artistry. So yeah, I think that would be my big 5. There are so many other artists that I want to choose, but yeah, my big 5.
Yeah, I was like, I know whenever I ask people, it's always hard. They're like, dang, like 5, like
yeah,
like ugh. I know, but it's hard. Okay,
that's
the last question: Kendrick or Drake?
Come on, man. I called Kendrick. I wish I could pull up this tweet and be like, Drake better find him something safe to do. Like when it first kind of started, right? Now, let me be clear. It was 3 of them when this all started, right? J. Cole dropped out, and I think for a couple reasons. Number 1, he saw it for what it was and was just like, I don't need to be involved in this shit, honestly. Number 2, I think he had made his point. He had dropped in diss tracks. He did what he did. He was like, you niggas know I can flow. Like, what is it? And
rumor is that Schoolboy Q talked to him at his festival. That's what I heard the rumor was.
Talked to Cole?
Yeah, they said, because you know how he announced he apologized at the festival that, like, hey, I'm taking the song down. Because Schoolboy Q performed at J. Cole's festival like the day before. And rumor is that Schoolboy Q went to talk to him like, hey, man, like, K-Dot got some stuff on the way. If you don't want none of that heat.
Here's the thing, though. I think J. Cole was the one in it that had the chops to even go head to head with Kendrick. Yeah. Drake should have stayed out of it.
Right.
Drake, you don't have.
I would have loved it more if it was Kendrick versus Cole, because I'm a Cole fan.
That would have actually been more interesting, right? Because Cole, as a writer, Cole is disgusting with a pen. Like, I mean, some of the stuff he can do with words is insane. And the only way I can really explain it is he has such control over the English language. He can bend it to his will the way he wants to, right? That's the beauty of J. Cole. I'm not saying Kendrick doesn't have it, but Cole just does it. It just be crazy. Drake never had the range to begin with. I don't even know why he put himself in that situation. But the 2 of them would have been crazy. I genuinely think that Cole was like, I actually don't need to be involved in a feud with 2 brothers that look just like me. I genuinely believe that because I don't think he was scared at all.
Yeah, and I think he was just more like
anything to be afraid of.
Yeah, I think he was just like, I just want to do this just for the art, the fun. Like I don't hate neither one of you guys. I was like, now them two, they literally hate each other. He's just like, I'm just having fun with the art.
No, I genuinely don't think Cole dropped out because he was afraid, because he knows he's nasty. He knows this. And anybody who says he ain't, just go listen to the mixtapes before he was even mainstream.
Right.
Like, please. I mean, Section 80 and some of J. Cole's mixtapes, head to head. Just like the way they use words is incredible. So definitely Kendrick. And it wasn't even on, everybody was like, well, you just picking him because you from LA. No, I'm picking him because he's the better wordsmith. He's the better artist, period. And being from LA doesn't hurt. So when he dropped Not Like Us, he gave California a summer song. And we always need a summer song every year in California. When he dropped that shit and then he did the thing at the Coliseum, I was like, well, this is a wrap. You might as well, I told you to go find something safe to do, Drake. I told you to go find you something safe to do. Because now look at you.
Right. So
yeah, always Kendrick.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to sit there and talk to me. Let the folks know all your social media and where they can find you and all that and your podcast, and, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So the podcast is The Green Route. You can find it Spotify, Apple. The full videos of the podcast are actually on YouTube as well. You can follow the podcast on social media at The Green Route Pod. And then for my personal page, it's I Drank Politics. Drank is DRANK. So I Drank Politics. And that's literally across any platform: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I mean, not YouTube. What is it? Twitter, all of that. So yeah, that's me.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. It's your boy Smilez. I'm here with Marlissa, and we out.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yep, you're welcome.